Hello, my name is Brian Boston, and today for my final business ethics project, I will be discussing Chipotle and their corporate social responsibility practices, their ethics, and so on. All right, let's get started. So here's a brief overview of my presentation. First, I'll talk about the history of Chipotle, then discuss their ethical and biblical principles, CSR approaches, conduct a pestle analysis, and then present my code of ethics and CSR statement, which I've written for them. So Chipotle opened in 1993 in Denver, Colorado, where the founder and former CEO Steve Ells served burritos inspired by San Francisco Mission District. The company emphasizes the connection between how food is raised and prepared and is one of the first restaurant brands to focus on local and organic produce. Chipotle operates over 3,300 Mexican restaurants in the United States as of December 2023, becoming a national quick service food provider. Like I said, Chipotle was born of the radical belief that there is a connection between how food is raised and prepared and how it tastes. Since its founding in 1993, and this is a quote by the way, Chipotle's mindset and approach to food have always been about working with, not against nature and using real ingredients free of any artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives, said Chris Brand, their chief marketing officer. So they believe it may be harder for them to do, but they prioritize that and only using all natural ingredients and healthy food. So you may see like on the Chipotle bag, we only use 53 ingredients you may pronounce. So that just they use that to support the claim that they use, all healthy ingredients. I'm not going to lie, it was pretty tough to find a verse or a way to connect their business practices biblically, but it did remind me of Deuteronomy 20:19, which says, "When you besiege a city, you shall not destroy its trees. You may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down." Are the trees in the field human that they should be besieged by you? So basically, God is emphasizing to the Israelites that hey, even though it's not your land, still respect the land that you conquered. Because you don't you shouldn't have any beef with the land. And yeah, and I connect that to Chipotle because they also do the same thing, but I feel like Chipotle specifically goes above and beyond what is typically required for a company. Okay, so I don't want to go into specifics yet because I cover everything I'm about to say in much more detail later on in the presentation. But Chipotle's motto is food with integrity. So they really, really try to maintain that in all that they do, whether it's how the way crops are grown, animals are treated, the environment, even things that regards the supply chain. They really focus on making sure that their food is organic and also promotes life and just it's clean food. So, okay, so this could easily be the longest part of anyone's presentation, but I will do my best to keep it brief. Starting with the political aspect, Chipotle, there isn't really much going on with them now, but in 2025, they were sued because of an E. coli outbreak, where which is food poisoning, and some of the customers got sick. In 2016, a lawsuit was filed against them in the U.S. District Court, alleging that the company's anti-GMO stance, wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Basically, the animals that Chipotle use for their protein have been fed genetically modified food, so their menu isn't entirely free of GMOs. But at the same time, it's like how much can you really control of that? All right, starting with the economics, Chipotle in 2023 they reported total revenue of 9.9 billion, which is almost a 15% increase in 2022, and of course, food and beverages accounted for almost 100% of that. And yep, and in 2024 they got approved by the SEC for a whopping 50-1 stock split. Like that is insane. But they did all that to make their stock more affordable to the average investor, which is pretty cool. All right, the social. Chipotle makes sure that their suppliers adhere to their supplier code of conduct, which requires compliance with applicable laws and prohibits forced labor, child labor, violations of standards for working hours and conditions, and human trafficking. So they also employ their employees with many benefits, including 401k, education assistance, pay time off, quarterly bonuses, things like that. And they have a huge vision of sustainability and a desire to protect the environment. Chipotle has donated over $105 million to schools and local community organizations. Okay. Technologically, Chipotle is this year planned to hire 20,000 seasonal employees for their more now they have more than 3,700 restaurants, and they're doing this to make sure that they're fully staffed for what they call the burrito season, which is Chipotle's most active time of the year, summertime. So they're leaning on an artificial intelligence program called Avocado, which is pretty cool to speed up the hiring process. And I mean, it's been pretty effective. The studies show that it dropped their application process time from an average of 12 days to 4 days. So it's pretty cool how they're using technology in that aspect. All right, the legal side, there's not much. Chipotle has faced several lawsuits, especially during COVID-19, sanitary practices and all that stuff. When food's made by hand, people are going to have a little bit more of an issue with that. And then finally, the environmental ethical side, I already said that they were big on sustainability, but they're trying to minimize the amount of virgin materials used, and they also want to reduce the amount of waste that they've been producing. And then, of course, have climate change goals based off the Paris Agreement. So they're trying to cut down their greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030. So we'll see how that goes. So, yep, that is my pestle analysis, which is pretty long, but hey, we got through it. Okay, so I'm not going to read the full code of ethics, but I just outlined things that, you know, Chipotle would probably co-sign or sponsor. Okay, so they would definitely be integrity first. Of course, they make food with a purpose, with their motto, food with integrity. People matter and how they treat their team. They would do planet stewardship for sure, environmental practices that reduce harm and invest in a greener future. They're definitely big on community, accountable leadership, zero tolerance, which is like discrimination, and they make sure that their staff is very diverse, and ethical innovation, which is basically embracing technology in a way that upholds their values and protects their stakeholders without damaging the environment. Okay, so now I'm going to read the CSR statement I made on behalf of Chipotle. At Chipotle, we believe that every burrito we roll should reflect a deeper responsibility to the world we share. Our commitment to ethical sourcing, climate action, and community empowerment shapes every decision we make, from farm to fork. We aim to lead the fast casual industry in sustainability, not because it's trendy, but because it's right. Whether by supporting regenerative agriculture, reducing waste, or promoting equity in our workforce, we're working to build a food system that respects people and the planet. Our promise is simple: better food, better world, every day. All right, so that concludes my final project for business ethics. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I don't know, maybe grab a bowl from Chipotle today. It's definitely my favorite restaurant. Um, it was an amazing class taking it with you guys, and appreciate you guys' thoughtful responses and responding to you guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the summer. All right, God bless.